It's not uncommon for WWE to just forget how many talents they have on their roster. Since the inception of NXT, NXT UK and 205 Live, the WWE roster has never been bigger. Naturally, this means that not all talents can be on television all the time. This can extend to weeks or even months, with talents being off television with seemingly no creative direction whatsoever. Despite there being more shows than ever, WWE currently has Raw, SmackDown, 205 Live, NXT, NXT UK and Main Event every single week, which equates to 9 hours of original programming per week. Is there anybody who's actually watching 9 hours per week? Well, whatever. With that being said, here are 10 WWE superstars that WWE Creative has seemingly forgotten about. Number 1. Titus ONeil. Titus ONeil never seems to have any creative direction, mainly because he's never on television. Following the breakup of the popular tag team The Primetime Players and eventual release of Darren Young in 2017, he seemingly transitioned into more of an ambassador role for WWE, appearing at charity events on behalf of the company rather than being featured as an on-air character. In 2019, he would only wrestle 6 times across WWE programming. Most of these matches were segments involving the 24/7 title, so to even class them as actual matches is a stretch. It's quite interesting how the WWE Creative never has the desire to use the former tag champion in a featured role, as he's a decent worker and has a great personality that comes out well whenever he's used on WWE television. Number 2. Mickie James. Mickie James has attained this status as one of the greatest and most legendary women wrestlers of all time. Which begs the question, why have WWE seemingly done nothing with her since her return at the start of 2017? It was clear shortly after she returned that she was brought in simply to fill a spot on the roster and put over the newer, younger female talents. Whilst this is an important role to have, it's not really an appropriate usage of one of the most popular female talents of all time. In 2019, Mickie would only wrestle on television 1 time, and this was a losing effort in a tag match against Tamina and Nia Jax. There hasn't been any direction at all from WWE for her, which is no doubt a massive shame. Admittedly, an injury may have rendered out any plans that WWE had for the former women's champion, but the booking issues and creative mishaps have been in place ever since her return over 3.5 years ago. It's vital that WWE Creative realize what they have with Mickie and take full advantage of her talents before she retires and calls it a day in the ring. Number 3. Manse. Manse is a talent that creatives seemingly only want to use when WWE do one of their Saudi Arabian based pay-per-views. He's attained extremely reputable wins over the likes of Cesaro and Dolph Ziggler at the Saudi shows, but none of these had any storylines going into them whatsoever and presented as something strictly for the Saudi people in attendance and not for those at home. Manse rarely ever is booked for NXT television, and this year he hasn't been booked on WWE television a single time outside of the Saudi events. This shows how the WWE creative team simply sees him as a novelty act who can be used in Saudi and that's it. They clearly have no desire to present him as anything beyond that, which is a shame as he clearly has a lot to offer. Number 4. Roode. Robert Roode had an incredibly successful run in TNA where he portrayed all avenues of wrestling characters, from the top heel as a world champion to a more comedic, light-hearted side alongside James Storm in Beer Money. Therefore, on the surface, he should have been a talent that WWE Creative thrived on booking, and that hasn't really been the case. Following an NXT run which was well received and included a decent reign as NXT champion, Roode would move over to the SmackDown brand in 2017. Creative problems began here as he was presented as a babyface despite being NXT's top heel, so there was a natural disconnect from the very beginning. Roode would go for extended periods of time off television. He would have glimpses of success such as the US title run that lasted 3 weeks, a makeshift tag team with Chad Gable and Dolph Ziggler, but as soon as these ended, he would once again be off television as WWE Creative attempted to find something new for him. They've never seemingly understood what they have with Roode, which is a shame as he's one of the most talented all-round wrestlers they have in the entire company. Roode hasn't even wrestled since the Tag Team Elimination Chamber match. Number 5. Shelton Benjamin. Shelton Benjamin was one of the most popular superstars during the Ruthless Aggression era, firstly as part of Team Angle with Kurt Angle and Charlie Haas, and then as a single star competing for the Intercontinental title. Therefore, when WWE announced that Shelton had re-signed in 2016, fans were excited to see one of their favorites back on WWE television. Sadly, to the disappointment of many, Shelton has been used as enhancement talent and nothing more. The last time he won a match on television was in September of 2018, nearly 2 years ago, and there's no signs of him getting any direction or even a meaningful match anytime soon. There might have been elements of creative direction for him, as his tag team with Chad Gable did have some legs, but they would never win the tag titles, and the team would ultimately disband in the annual Superstar Shakeup. They also had that brief gimmick of Shelton saying nothing during interviews. That was just seemingly dropped without any explanation. Things get worse as Shelton only wrestled 5 times on television, which just shows how WWE Creative either has nothing whatsoever for Shelton, or they forgot that they brought him back in 2016. Both possibilities are extremely disheartening. Number 6. Mojo Rawley. Mojo Rawley is actually someone who often has creative direction, but the creative direction is quickly dropped after their ideas are met with extremely poor reviews. Mojo initially had creative direction with Zack Ryder in NXT and then later in SmackDown Live as part of the Hype Bros. Once they would disband, Mojo would turn heel and would drop the Get Hype gimmick. However, he would soon be taken off television, as that was even failing to connect with the audience. Following over 6 months off television, WWE would air promos for Mojo where he would talk into a mirror with some bizarre pattern on his face, and this new version of Mojo would debut in early 2019 before the gimmick was instantly dropped as it was that poorly received. To be honest, we don't even think they gave it enough chance. WWE Creative would then have nothing for Mojo once again before they would write him in segments involving the 24/7 title before allowing Mojo to revert back to his hype persona to promote the involvement of Gronk as host of WrestleMania 36. Mojo is one of those rare cases where Creative often has plans for the talent, but the plans they have for the talent are so poor that they will die the moment they are presented on television. Number 7. Naomi. Naomi is without question the most athletic woman on the roster, but despite her athletic nature and fan popularity, Creative seemingly never has anything meaningful for Naomi to do on television. She often puts people over rather than being in featured feuds. Even when she had a run with the SmackDown Women's title in 2017, her only pay-per-view match before losing it was against Lana, which lasted just a minute. Fans were hoping that this would all change when she returned at the 2020 Royal Rumble, and her return was met with positive reviews and a post on social media that went viral as it contained a non-wrestling fan praising her and indicating that they wanted to watch wrestling just based off a small clip that involved Naomi's parkour skills during the Rumble. A push would commence shortly after the Rumble as she would face Bayley at Super Showdown pay-per-view, but would fail to win, and likewise at WrestleMania 36. Since then, she would put over other women and once again has no creative direction, and it appears once again WWE Creative have either forgotten about her talents or simply have no desire to use the former women's champion in a meaningful capacity. Number 8. Bo Dallas. Bo Dallas had extremely strong creative direction when he was put on part of the NXT brand. He was NXT champion in a lengthy reign that was heavy on character work, which made for some extremely entertaining segments and matches. However, when Dallas would join the main roster in 2014, it was clear that WWE Creative were unsure as to what direction they should take with his character. He initially was booked to have an inspirational speaker-style gimmick, but this fell flat immediately. He was then booked to join the jobber stable, the Social Outcasts, alongside Heath Slater, Adam Rose, and Curtis Axel, but that seemingly didn't achieve anything for any of the men in the infamous stable. Dallas did find success as part of the Miz's heel stable, the Miz Taraj alongside Curtis Axel, and the duo would even go on to win the Raw Tag Team titles with Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt on pay-per-view, but shortly after winning the titles, both men were taken off television as Creative clearly didn't have a clue what to do with them as champions. Dallas's last match on WWE television was in September 2019, and now that Curtis Axel has been released, it's unknown what Dallas's future holds in terms of creative direction. Number 9. Riddick Moss. Riddick Moss is mostly known for being used as enhancement talent in NXT, therefore it was actually a surprise to many when Moss would be called up to the main roster at the beginning of 2020. He would make his debut on Raw as Mojo Rawley's lackey. The partnership was met with mixed reviews as the audience had no idea who Moss was and why he was suddenly attached to Rawley. The partnership would quickly end in just 2 weeks after the team of Rawley and Moss lost to the Street Profits. Moss would then turn on Rawley and actually pin him to win the infamous 24/7 title. This was a shocking move as Moss had just gone from virtually unknown in the world of WWE to winning a title on WWE television in a matter of weeks. In March, he would get his biggest win of his career. He would defeat cleanly one of the most popular stars on Raw, Ricochet, in a move that shocked fans and made fans question the booking of this particular result. Following losing the 24/7 title to R-Truth whilst he was out on a jog, Moss would then be taken off television and wouldn't be seen since. It's unknown why WWE called him up if they clearly didn't have any long-term plans for him, and in the wake of the global pandemic, it appears that WWE have completely forgotten about the former 24/7 champion. And number 10, Chad Gable. Chad Gable is one of the most gifted talents in the entire WWE. From his initial debut in NXT, Gable was heavily compared to Kurt Angle as Gable competed at the 2012 Olympics, so naturally fans expected big things from him. Things began well for Gable as the American Alpha team with Jason Jordan was extremely popular in NXT, but this didn't really translate well on the main roster as the booking of the two was inconsistent at best. Following the duo disbanding, Gable would bounce around the tag teams and he would team with Shelton Benjamin and then team with Bobby Roode, where they would win the Raw tag titles. Both never really connected with the audience despite Gable clearly being the star of both teams. Then they would change his character completely to Shorty G, a move that was negatively received by fans. Gable, or Shorty G, has only won once on television in 2020 and the gimmick has done absolutely nothing for him. It's clear the WWE has no idea what to do with him, and any ideas they have are either extremely lazy or are done to mock his height to no doubt make Vince McMahon laugh. Gable unfortunately hasn't appeared on television in over 3 months, and it appears that the creative team once again have run out of ideas for the former Olympian. But there you have it guys, 10 WWE superstars WWE creative has seemingly forgotten about. Is there any other wrestlers that WWE has forgotten about? Let us know in the comments down below, subscribe if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Twitter, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.